Talking tactics on location. Dave Miles, what a beautiful day in Monagita.
A very rare non-windy day, Paulie. It's great.
It is indeed. This is recorded and I'll put it up on social media a bit later on tonight because they're racing at Mildura and try and give some of the harness people something else to watch other than the Vic Cup previews, which is a pretty exciting weekend actually, isn't it?
Great weekend, yes. Some great racing there tomorrow night. Luckily enough, we've got a runner there tomorrow night with a chance too. So looking forward to seeing all the Sydney horses take on the Victorian horses in the Cup and seeing who comes out on top.
Vic Cup tip, I might as well throw you under the bus straight away.
I think if Lochinvar Art's at his best, he wins. He's got a few challenges. Belrage is going to get a great run. Cash and Flow, if he spears off the arm and finds the top, will really throw a pigeon amongst the works. But I think if Lochinvar Art's at his best, he wins.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people will be barracking for him. Dave Moran does a great job. Talking tactics, mate, I generally just do them on a Saturday night, mainly because I was doing parade rings and I was able to watch races a little bit more in depth and be able to get a little bit of feedback from people and the likes. Things have changed. HRV, I don't do the Saturday nights as much anymore. I try to bring as much coverage as I can for the country people as well. So that in mind, driving a treble last night at Kilmore, I thought, well, why not get the man on after driving a treble, and you're only ever happy to pick up a microphone in front of me?
That's not true. I like a bit of karaoke at any time too, Paulie.
Absolutely. Now the dogs have come from nowhere, and then they've decided they're both going to join us. Alfie's sitting back there, thinks it's hilarious, but that's okay. They want their 5 minutes of fame, don't they?
Don't we all, Paulie? Don't we all?
The reason I said that is because anyone that does follow myself on Twitter, or even yourself, Dave, will be aware that we've been doing a couple of different things where you've been giving the punters at home an in-depth, your thoughts in depth on what the I could see all my cords going there.
Yeah, so did I. The dog would take the whole lot out.
For the punters at home, we're just trying something to be able to bring a little bit more character and a bit more give as I said, the punters at home a little bit of insight as to your thoughts on the races, unlike what I used to be able to do when I go to the races and put a microphone in front of people's faces. So I think, firstly, well done to you, and I think they've been well received.
No, 100%, Paul. They really have been well received. We've had some great feedback, and it's been nice that the horses have been going good, and they're it's not wasted. But hopefully the public and the punters just get a little bit more of an insight. As a trainer, sometimes we don't want to let trainers know. I know I had a trainer Saturday night mentioned to me that I gave some tactics up for a race at Melton, and he said, I definitely wouldn't have done that, but we're not a massive punting stable, so it doesn't bother me if other people know what we're going to do. But on the whole, it really has been taken very, very well.
It's funny because that trainer himself, he's actually quite open to it. I think it was more just certain comments, I think, because he's actually okay with putting it out there as well.
Oh, I think so, yeah. We were drawing barrier one with Jamison Steele, and they had the two horse in the race, and, I made comment in the preview on Twitter that I would be handing up to Better Be Sorry if he came across, and he said, I wouldn't have said that because now we're going to attack. And I said, well, if you're good enough to get across, you will. And they were. They got us out the gate, which was, didn't hinder us. Well, probably just did cost us winning the race, but more my horse being a bit funny going up to the gate cost him winning the race himself rather than their knowledge of what was going to happen.
Does it change the way you think about what you're going to provide next time?
Not necessarily, not next time, but there'll be a time where I want to change tactics on one that I might not want people to know, and it's very interesting now, without the change of tactics rule, we can do that, where once upon a time we might have had a horse a little bit like Safe Jules, who we're talking about in a minute, who has to be driven with a sit, but there'll be one day where I go, right, no, today we're going to push the button and drive her off the arm to catch somebody by surprise. And the element of surprise is always great. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does.
Absolutely. Paul Dobson, you're wearing his Kelly Partners hat. Well done. You're looking after for a couple of my sponsors, so you're doing the right thing. He was the one that actually put it out there on Twitter one day, that people just putting a list of their names and their runners going up, but doesn't give the punters much at all and try and change it up. So I think well done to you. I ran the idea past you. You said yes, and we're just trying a different way. Anyone else that wants to do it, get in touch with me, and we can definitely work out an arrangement to be able to get it out there and go for that way. You had a really good night. Any night you drive a treble is a good night, mate. There's not a hassle in the world there, but think it probably started off with a ripping night. Happy birthday, Gordon Caddy Pace. I don't know who Gordon Caddy is, but
Happy birthday, Gordon.
happy birthday to him. One of the stable stalwarts and one of the great horses for the stable managed to notch up a milestone in himself, which I think probably at some stages you never thought he'd be able to achieve in 2 for 60.
For a long while, I didn't think he was ever going to achieve it. I nearly sacked him a couple of times as a 2-year-old. He couldn't pace. He's got terrible conformation. He's pigeon-toed to hell. He's got a little breathing problem that he's had all his life, and he's not the prettiest of paces at all. Zach Phillips actually said to me last night after he won, he said he thinks he drove him at his second or third start. And I said, I think he might win a race. And Zach said, no, he won't. He won't win a race. And here he is winning 100 grand. So we all get it wrong at times, but it's amazing. I said to one of the workers this morning, I said, I would have discounted him on confirmation at the yearling sales. We were very, very lucky at yearling sale day that my dad was as drunk as a skunk and bought him for a very cheap price of $6,000, despite the fact that he thinks he only bid 4. It was 6, and we got him home. And you can't substitute for heart. This old fella, he tries his absolute heart out every time he goes around.
Right out. Stop the video. People can't see that I've got a laptop on my lap here. Just going into the first turn. He's a horse that needs races probably run to suit, but then he's good enough to be able to win the races if they are. What are your thoughts here? You're 20, 30 metres off these 2 tearaways out in front. Like, were you giggling, or were you like, man, they're getting a long way ahead of us?
No, I was very happy there. I had the 2 best horses in front of me in the race in Lola Montez and Jimmy Come Home. The 2 leaders that are good if they get a cheap lead, Adam Crocker and Ace Dugan, that both, if they get easy leads and they can free roll without having to burn, are both hard to run down. But when those 2 had to have a pretty hard burn, I thought that might take care of them. And following Lola Montez and Jimmy Come Home was a great place to be. Had Mick Stanley in the death. Mick doesn't often hand up the breeze, but he was hanging back on a horse whose form was just a little bit indifferent, not bad, but just on her way up, and a 3-year-old filly up against the older horses probably allowed him to drive her a bit quieter.
I'll just stop you for 1 sec, just for young drivers out there, and I like to explain 2 things. You said sitting back there, so I might be able to actually blow this up 1 bit. Might actually get you to hold my microphone for me, Dave. They're doing this really, really well. But just to clarify, just there, when you say sitting back, the cursor doesn't work, but he's actually outside the horse tree back the fence, and he's made no attempt to get up outside Ace Dugan for the best part of about 50 metres. Is that fair? Correct,
yeah. There was a really quick burn, and we were running into a pretty good headwind down the back straight at Kilmore last night. It was blowing quite strong. So I just wasn't quite sure, even though Mick was hanging back, I wasn't sure whether he was just going to take his time and get up outside the leader, and Mick does like sitting outside the leader, so just wasn't quite sure. Didn't want to pull out into the breeze down the back straight when he was hanging back so far, so just gave myself a furlong to see whether we were going to go. Had Chris Alford in front of us, who also likes being putting these horses into the race. Wasn't sure that if I went, he went. So waited till we got to the arc of the turn, and then when I went quick because I just wasn't still 100% sure even then that Mick was going to let me go, even though they were running a very slow quarter. Got there cheaply, 33 and a half. I think the lead, the first quarter was very slow, and then I was wrapped. I was absolutely wrapped because I knew we were going to be able to run a pretty good half. And I was going to have Jimmy Come Home and Lola Montez 3 deep in the run. Did still think that Mick's horse was the horse to beat. Thought I had the leader's back covered, and but I was pretty happy where I was here. It was just a matter of when I had to push the go button.
That little bit of sitting back, what I was trying to say there with Mick, is a little bit of an unwritten rule that you're not that keen on the death. You're happy if you're stuck there, correct, but you're not that keen. If you don't want to be there at all, you generally snag back harder.
Yep.
But just sitting there like that is an unwritten rule to other drivers that, look, if you want to come,
yep,
if you do it the right way, you got a chance.
100%. It is an unwritten rule. There are a couple of young drivers at the moment that like to hang back, and then when you go, they post you. But anyway, that's that's something that you learn in time. I never forget. I posted Gavin one day doing the same thing, hung back and left him out there. And he just said to me that if you're good enough to post that driver and leave them out there 3 wide, you're good enough to let them go, get some cover, and then pop out early enough and be the first horse 3 deep. He said it's actually an easier run for your horse to let that driver go and then pop back out later on. Rather than get into the burn in that second quarter of posting the bloke coming 3 deep or the horse coming 3 deep.
And that's what Grant was saying the other day about Gavin. He used to grab hold, and you'd think, why is he doing that? Letting certain horses in front of him when they're jostling for spots, and just to be aware.
100%.
And that's what Talking Tactics is about, educating the punters as well as other people going around. The emotion of winning a race, like with this horse, because I do remember, and there is a little bit of a tag behind the name too, isn't there?
Yeah. He's a lot of people think it's a cricketing term too for 60, but no. Back when he was a yearling or a 2-year-old and he was getting ready to go to the races, Dad loves his beer, as most people know at the trots, and Mum would quite often say, "Oh, do you want anything down the street, Marty? If Carlton Cole's 2 slabs for 60, get me 2 slabs." So it's 2 slabs of Carlton Cold. Now it's about 2 for 90, but he's been around that long, this horse. But no, seriously, to win 100,000, Mum and Dad have owned him. He and as I just said, his confirmation said he should not have had 50 starts, let alone 160 starts. But to win 13 races with that old fella, and he's the stable mascot. He really is. He's got a cheeky side to him. I've said quite a few times, we have horses that do things wrong, but he's got the personality that we laugh at him when he does things wrong, where other horses you get angry with him when they do things wrong, but he's got that sort of personality. And he was always the horse. Oh, we need something to fast work with one today. Grab Crownie. So his stable name's Crownie after Crown Lager because that's what Dad was drinking on the day he bought him. So
they're no good, those Crownies. That's why I'm a teetotaler. I know that. But he's been proven right. So, and it's good for Dad. Like they're at retirement age, so it's also free COVID and that, giving him something to enjoy. The Bendigo Club Bistro, Vic Bread. I should look after the sponsors at Kilmore, that's for sure. I do get paid there from time to time once we get out of this COVID stage, and they are available for takeaways. I know in Bendigo, anyone that's watching it, get there for your takeaway meals. This horse, Art of, and you got to do the rest of it for me because there are certain words I can't get around. This has a bit of sentimental value, this horse. It was a regulation win, I suppose. On paper, it got the job done, but for Vince Vallelonga, it's a fitting win, I think.
Yeah, Vinny and his partner Liz. It's the first horse that Liz has bred, so there's a soft spot there for her. Vinny's obviously doing it very tough since he's had a very tough last couple of years. He's had some really bad falls, but no, this filly's got lots of ability, but she's a work in progress. We gave her 1 run in February, and she won and did a lot wrong. I said to Vinny, well, we'll tip her out and now that she's got her bonus and we won't put too much pressure on her. We tried a long time this preparation to just get her back to the races with very minimal gear, and it just hasn't worked. She's got a lot of harness on. She's very hard to drive. It mightn't look that way there. We were pretty lucky. We landed a great spot and just had the perfect trip, really, from a good barrier. But you'll just see she hung really bad on the last corner. I actually had her half out, because if you sit her in the middle of the helmet, she wants to hang inside the horse in front of her. But if you sit her on the outside wheel, she'll actually drive reasonably straight, but she can't accelerate on the corners just yet. So we just sat her, we half-carted all the way around the last bend, and then she always hangs in for about the first 50 metres of the straight, which you'll see that she does. And it's not until she gets halfway up the straight, almost like a galloper, where she changes legs and she straightens up, and then the last 80 metres of the straight, she just powered away. She really did win impressively, and I couldn't pull her up down the back straight. She's got a lot of ability. When I say a lot of ability, she's probably not Group 1 class, but she's 1 rung below. And I think if we can straighten her up, there's a chance that we might be able to be going around in a Breeders' Crown final or a size final if we can straighten her up.
In the next couple of months?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she finds a line here, and you can see, as you said, you're just at that wheel there. There's no one coming behind, so you're not impeding them. Here, still just ducking in that little bit, but you're able to get her out a little bit, out wider, and then start asking her. Here, you're just going to get that horse, and then on the line, she wins comfortably.
She just powered away the last 100 metres. She really did, and was super strong. the horse three back the fence won impressively last week, and I knew it would be getting up the sprint lane. So I was actually concerned about the 150 that we weren't accelerating, and then all of a sudden she took off. She does wear a lot of headgear. She's got very big set of block blinds and a shadow roll on, and she has got lost in front at the trials, and I was just a bit concerned that she might get a bit lost when she cleared the horses, but she didn't do it that night at all. Last night at all, she was great.
It's actually interesting. The horse three back the fence, as you said, got home really good last time. Just sort of maybe got bogged down on the wetter track last night. Didn't seem to be able to charge through either, which might have made it a bit easier. But you're always going to win, I think, anyway.
Rob did a great job. I can tell you right now, we sat here at 6 o'clock.
You made mention in the Twitter post.
Not wanting to go to Kilmore at all last night because the weather was just atrocious. But Rob and the track guys at Kilmore last night did a super job. But the one thing that probably was evident was the fence was maybe just off a smidge. Some leaders did win, but I think it might have just been off a smidge, yeah.
Yeah, and that's naturally because the water runs down, so that's naturally where the water stops.
And to be honest, I never saw the sprint lane. The sprint lane could have been worse, but I actually I steered clear of it all night.
Fibre Protect from Highgain, I noticed on the posts on Kilmore. Christy was you got another bag. You're doing all right on those bags, aren't you?
Got another bag, and I'm pretty sure Michael Bellman will be pretty happy about that too. He's had something to say on Facebook, which we'll get back. It will get back.
Rishi, you can't pick on Rishi at the minute. He is low flying. Okay, tune into our Twitter feeds. And to be honest, I don't listen to 100% of them all. I'm not sure if you reiterated it on the one for Kilmore, but this horse's start before at Shepparton, you told everyone that it's out of the draw intentionally, and you're trying to educate this horse. What are you actually trying to do? Safe Jewels we're talking about too for everyone that's at home. And it is the horse that's the widest on the runner. It's number 7 there in the picture out wide.
So this little filly's very quirky. I can't say that I've really had one like her before. If she sees the mobile gate, she loses her mind. She wants to charge, she wants to hang. She ducked out in a race at Ballarat and caused an Emma Stewart runner to be caused a non-runner about 3 or 4 runs ago. She wears an inside Murphy blind that we've been tinkering with the patch on and the patch off. If I leave the patch on her, she can't see the inside horses, and she's been beaten ahead a couple of times where when she hasn't had sight of another runner, she's not thrown the race away, but just hasn't been quite genuine. So, but if I leave the eye open, leave the patch off the Murphy blind, I can't get her around the last corner. All she wants to do is hang in. We've warmed her up a few times without the Murphy blind on because in the prelim she wants to run off the track because she doesn't like it. She has got some tricks. She really has. And in saying that, the last few times she's seen the mobile, she's raced really poorly. Last night from 7 was a worry, but I'd always planned to miss it a length. False start definitely didn't help. She got quite stirred up in the first false start when Rita Burnett's horse broke some gear. So really, you just got to drive her for her. If the speed's not on, the speed's not on. You just can't do anything about it. There are certain horses like 2 for 60 who is a sit sprint horse, but last night no speed could go round to the breeze. Her no speed on. No, you just got to take your time and sit out the back and hope. And last night was a prime time to go through the middle, which was going to work. But as you'll see later,
we'll get to that part in a sec. What I want to know. So she's funny going up to the mobile. You said you've got to time your run and judge your run to the right times when to get her on there, especially seeing the mobile. You said she doesn't like seeing it. So we've gone 250, 300 metres from the mobile, and here and even the next bit after this, you continue just to let it get slower. Is that, or what is? I'm not going to actually put words in your mouth. What is the process of what you're thinking here?
She's like driving a car with a sticky accelerator. Is the best way to describe it. If you just touch it a fraction too hard,
Alfie won't remember what that's like. A lot of the kids nowadays won't know what that's about.
Well, we have certain horses that I say is like driving the old Dodge truck with the loose steering wheel. You sort of, but she's like driving a car with a sticky accelerator. If you ask her to go, sometimes she goes too hard. And if you ask her to back off, she backs off too much. So you've just got to do everything very gently. I really try to drive her on 2 fingers, only 2 fingers in the reins rather than 3. because with Three Fingers in the Range, you feel like you're just a touch too hard on her mouth. She wears a crescendo bit and a mouth shutter, like a figure eight. So those bits can be severe on her, but that's what we need to get her around. Would have been lovely to have been able to tack up down the back a bit sooner and not let Maddie Newbury off. And I was actually a little bit frustrated with myself there that I didn't. But as it turned out, they then put the speed on a little bit quicker as Maddie come off the fence and Chris Shin. I think if Chris hadn't have attacked the leader, we might have gone 33 here. But 31.8 was all right. And then it was a matter of just trying to find the right trail into the race. She doesn't like being wide on the corners, and as I said, she with that inside Murphy blind not being able to see them, she definitely races better in between horses. But we haven't been able to get there.
You look to be sort of asking her there. The body was moving, not so much the hands, but the body
Correct.
was moving,
Yep.
just to try and encourage her without
Yep.
without actually letting the accelerator
Exactly
go.
right.
Yep.
It's a fine line with her, and she'll learn. I think after this mare's had 40 starts, she'll be easy to drive. Her mother was very similar, Jewel Castle. She was a little bit funny, really early in her career, but I think this filly will learn and she'll get better. And once she can race without giving them a start, she'll get better too.
So right here, this is where action starts to happen. Jaden Bruin's horse is dropping out. So you've got options if you like. Effectively, you go through the fence, but at the same time, you've got the option of going through the fence. Maddie Newbury pulls out 3 wide. What's the thought process about here? Like there's a little bit goes on in the next about 100 metres, but right here, prior to that all happening, what was the thought process?
Maddie's horse hadn't really travelled, even though it had been on a bit of a loose rein, and I was fairly confident that Disco Boyden was going to pull out of the 1-1. So my thought process right here was punch up inside, use my momentum, and then put Maddie 4 deep and get Steve's back. Unfortunately, my filly decided right about here to duck in, and Rita's just ran out just a smidge, not much, and we lock wheels. Right there. And then it was trouble, because then I've lost all my momentum. Maddie's horse right there is maybe a neck off Steve's back, and I was going to use my momentum just to keep coming out underneath Maddie, and we would have won the race a lot simpler.
And probably to explain to people, that momentum that you have, Maddie's horse would naturally roll away from it anyway. Correct. Because that's the way they come around the bend.
That's right.
And the horse would naturally be following your horse, and all of a sudden it's 4 deep and it doesn't know it's actually 4 deep.
And the other point with that is, as I said, Maddie's horse had never travelled in the run. It wasn't quite on the bit. It was still going okay, but you can't hold your spot. It's so hard to hold your spot if your horse is not travelling on the bit strongly. So from here, I've locked wheels with Rita.
Fortunate to get out pretty quickly. I mean, I just showed just then, but you were able to get out of the lock very quickly. Sometimes you can be locked, and that's the end of the race, isn't it?
Correct. Yep. No, and it was great that Rita, being a very senior driver, knew and didn't grab hold of her horse. So here it was. I'd committed to that run, but I've got no momentum now, and I can't shift Maddie, and I've just got to wait until I can get half a sniff and get around Steve's wheel. Steve unfortunately rolls up the track just a little bit here, which made it a bit harder, and then probably did something that you wouldn't be teaching junior drivers to do, but I gave Maddie a really good shove with my horse's shoulder.
We will get to that in a sec, but clearly here your arm's out the side of the cart pulling that rein, like she's definitely lugging in as well, which makes the next part of the move even harder.
Yep, she was lugging right in, and what you can't see there is to get her to not stop lugging in. I actually had to pull the left rein, which she wears a burr rein, runs the burr rein across her neck, straightens her head up, and it shifts her body, and it gets her backside to the outside. Nearly said the wrong word there. Gets her backside to the outside shaft, which then causes her to run up the track. And at the same time, by using her shoulder on Maddie's shaft, just got me enough room. And Maddie was pretty kind to me. He just gave me a smidge of room too after I give him a little bump. And Steve's horse straightened then.
Yep.
And then the gap was nice and wide. And to her credit there, after doing all that and me getting it wrong a little bit, she won on the bit with the earplugs in.
And the interesting part about all that, you drove a treble for the night. If you're having a bad run, like there'll be kids out here watching this and all the rest, if you're having a bad run, Boyo runs up the track, which we can clearly see here. He doesn't run up the track. His horse wobbles up the track. He corrects it and straightens it. But if you're having a bad run, you've committed to that outside run.
Yeah.
Boyo doesn't correct his horse. He just keeps letting it roll. You never get out.
Yeah,
But that's one of the things that can happen when you're having a good run.
100%. Just a lot of luck there. A lot of luck. As I said, Matty was pretty kind to me to pull off, and Steve straightened his horse up. But she was, to her credit, she did a really good job. She was stopped twice in her tracks in the last 400 metres, and usually you can't win races like that.
She's a nice filly. I'm not sure how far you think she will actually go, but from a person looking from afar, she's the sort of horse I don't think you'd be able to put an accurate measure, because sometimes she looks very, very exciting. Other times she can look plain, but obviously it's learning the manners. So it's just going to be a matter of if everything falls together, she could go a fair way, but if not, she might be in trouble.
She's got to learn the craft, and I think she will. She's by Safely Kept, which you and I know quite well. A lot of the younger people won't, but a lot of them were born with Murphy blinds on because they just didn't steer.
And knee boots.
And knee boots, yeah.
And a beautiful horse, Ellen Galloway, please.
Yeah,
beautiful horse. We loved him the best.
Listen,
but
I drove one of his best sons in Manifold Bay. He was a superstar. But as we know, and you being a horse dentist will know, the Safely Kept, you never find the perfect bit for them. You always drive them and go, oh, that bit's good, but it's just not perfect. And she's exactly the same. There's some days where I go, oh, I've got to go back to something softer. You put that on it twice, and then you've got to go back to something more severe.
You're not my greatest advert as a horse dentist, are you? Technically, you're saying about how badly two of them hung last night. You're not selling. You might help sell Campbell's Comments and Talking Tactics, but Paul Campbell Horse Dentistry is copping a hiding right at the minute.
Yeah. Well, you can't be good at everything, Paulie.
No. One day I might find me niche. It'll be fine. Dave, we normally do our little Twitter polls, but who have we got in tomorrow night, mate? We might as well do it now, and hopefully people have enjoyed this, so I'll be able to get the full coverage for tomorrow night as well.
Got the little pocket rocket Louis Sedgwick in.
Yeah.
He's had absolutely no luck his last two. He's been terribly unlucky. I locked wheels with Rock and Roll Eyes and Daryl Douglas there when going to be right in the race, and I was following Mr. Wickham, who won the race. Whether I win or not, is up for conjecture, because it's a big what if. But he would have been right in at 2 starts back. Last week he drew bad. Jaden drove him and went back. Thought he had a pretty good trail into the race, which turned out not to be a great trail, and the horses wide in that race never got into it. His sectionals were fantastic. He was 4 and 5 deep in the last lap, and I think he got home in 1:53. So he's drawn a great barrier tomorrow night inside the back row, which suits him. He's got a lot better now from barrier 8. The last time he drew barrier 8, he held up in behind the leader. So if he can do that again, we've drawn behind a horse that likes to lead in Pacifico Dream. Obviously tough racing tomorrow night. He's got Wolf Stride to take on, who was huge last week. Seems to have got a bit better after a couple of lacklustre runs in Sydney, but he was fantastic first up last week at Melbourne. But I think he is a really, really great each way chance. Even if he's 3 back the fence, I think he's still a really good hope if we can find clear running.
And he's a lovely little horse, and he's just come a long way. COVID lockdown probably, I suppose, elevated him a little bit, because he was probably nearly on his mark the way things were going. Then he's just grown a leg, hasn't he, in confidence, and now he's not even close to being on his mark. He can stay around racing in that class for a long time, earn money at the right time.
Well, and the beauty with him is he's versatile. He's got gate speed, and we can lead and hand up to the right horse, or if he's drawn out the back, you can take off and get into the race on a trail. Once he sees daylight, he likes to go. And there's another horse that, just one little gear change, we had a certain pulling cord on him, and we just changed the texture of that pulling cord, and it just made him happier. And he's driving a lot better, and you can actually drive him into a spot, tap the brakes, and he will. Where before, if you drove him into a spot and you tapped the brakes, you wanted to get a bit angry. So just little things there. So there's your plug. You've helped that one. That was your suggestion, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't mine. It wasn't
Trying to
mine
help
at all.
you, Paulie. Trying to help you.
Dave, I don't need help. I'll just talk. Dave, thank you very much. Coming on Campbell's Comments, Talking Tactics. Anyone likes this, watched it for the first time, go to campbellscomments.com. You can see all of those. You and me have also got a couple more harebrained ideas that we're going to do. We're going to try and do a little bit of a track training and the likes going forward. So if people don't enjoy you and me talking too much, it's sort of bad luck, isn't it?
100%. 100%. I love the sound of my own voice. I don't know about everybody else.
Alison Alford wasn't keen on it the other day, the stable chat, and she's got to try and beat you. So yeah, she set herself a task to beat your stable chat, which has been brought to you by Kelly Partners. There's not a worry there. I've got the Woodlands hat on, Barristock Andrew Soper and the likes. I've got a few things on the go going forward, so I'm going to make sure I look after my sponsors. The shadow doesn't help me. It's a bit dark there. How's that,
Well,
Andrew? You'd be happy?
Soper won't be happy. He can be an angry little man.
He can be. Luckily, it's cold and overcast. Otherwise, I've got the woodland shirt on underneath, so he'd be in trouble. Soper only sends me a vest. Just putting it out there, Andrew. I've only got a vest.
He's a great man, Andrew. He owned a very, very good horse with us, a Breeders' Crown winner in Lead Suitcase.
Yes, and he's a lot of fun. Don't worry about that, but it's all good. I appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch up again very shortly, I'd imagine.
Good on you, Paulie.